If you ask me, is what I'm advocating likely to happen? No. I'm perfectly prepared, as I have been throughout my whole life, to say what I believe, even if I don't think it's likely to happen, because I think it's the right thing to do. So I just want to clarify, I'm not making a prediction that this is about to happen. It might. The argument I'm making inside the U.S. is that Donald Trump wants to make America great again. Well, maybe the first step would be American sovereignty, because I don't believe any of this has been in America's interest. In other words, this isn't some great accomplishment of the U.S. To have led to $7 trillion of debt and mass bloodshed and diplomatic isolation of the United States through 6 wars that Netanyahu has called for. I'm trying to say this is not in America's interest. It also happens to have the, let's say, the added feature, which doesn't matter very much, I admit, but the American people don't want us to continue being accomplices to Israel's genocide. I say that it doesn't much matter because America is not a democracy in any operational sense when it comes to foreign policy or much else, by the way. It's a highly corrupted plutocracy. But when it comes to foreign policy, it's not even remotely a democratic institution. We're lied to every day. There's no deliberation. There's no attempt to discern the public views of issues, none at all. It's completely in the hands of the National Security Council and the CIA. We don't know, again, whether the president's been in the loop on much of anything for a long time because he's mentally, at least partly, incapacitated. But my point is, this is not in American interest. So it's a glimmer of hope. If you ask me, is it more likely to say, yes, we'll have 2 states than to say this coming year we'll go for the 1-state solution? I would say yes. But maybe I'm, playing with numbers that one has a 10% or 5% or 3% chance and one has a 0.01% chance. So one may be much more likely, but still highly unlikely. But I'm trying to go with something that at least has a chance this coming year to stop the killing, stop the bloodshed, put a floor under what is now a Palestinian freefall. Also, by the way, look around the Arab world. Of course, some states are still in diplomatic recognition of Israel, which I can't really understand. I find it this was the time to break diplomatic relations, in my view. Genocide is a good reason for that, but they didn't do it. And they didn't do it because the U.S. military bases are there and for other reasons that we've talked about. But even those states say 2-state solution. Some of them say it actually pretty firmly right now. If the Arab world, maybe this, I don't know if you'll laugh or cry or whatever, but if the Arab world actually got its act together and said, we have leverage, we've waited 100 years for that. It hasn't happened yet. But if it did happen, that really could change things, by the way. If Donald Trump heard clearly from the entire Arab world, and it's not impossible, look, don't play games anymore with us. Don't bribe us with your F-35s. Don't bribe us. Don't talk about the Abraham Accords and what it's going to mean and try to pull us apart one more time. Our position is the following, and that's our position. And accept it or don't accept it, but that's our position. We've taken it to Beijing. We've taken it to Moscow. We've taken it to Brasilia. We've taken it to South Africa. That's our position. You know what? That would actually make a difference. It would make a difference.
Sorry, so much of what you're saying here is so admirable in terms of, pursuing a noble ambition of peace and so on, and obviously we share that ambition towards peace and justice. But part of what's happening, and you put your finger on it too, is there's also increasingly a gap between US popular opinion and the policymaking establishment run by the lobby in Washington. Our last guest before you was John Mearsheimer, incidentally. So we're talking all about this. But the crisis we see on our campuses, you're at Columbia, I'm at UCLA. I mean, like our campuses, I know your campus is like fenced off from the world now. Our campus is essentially patrolled by riot police. This level of suppression that's going on now, it seems to me that more and more people are aware of what's going on at the popular level, certainly on college campuses. So isn't this the best moment to say what we want to pursue is what we really believe in, at least what I really believe in, I think my brothers share this too, is a one democratic and secular state where all citizens can be equal. And why don't we, if we're pushing for an ideal in the face of viciousness and violence and genocide, why don't we push for a true democratic, just, equality for all kind of situation, rather than a two-state solution that we all know is gone. And even if it were realized, it would still leave the refugees out of the picture. It would leave the Palestinian citizens inside pre-48 or pre-67 as second-class citizens. So yeah, I don't know what you think about that.
I have no problem with that. I'm taking a different approach, but it's a perfectly reasonable approach, you're saying. My approach is, again, all of it is against the odds. Your approach, my approach, believe me, it's against the odds. You know it too. But my approach is change one vote because it's in the U.S. national interest to change that vote, and go with the fact that we are with the overwhelming sentiment of humanity to act now. So that's why I'm taking the approach that I am. But I understand what you're saying completely. I don't disagree with it either.
Okay, Jeff, I know we need to wrap. It's interesting now, as we record, we have Amos Hochstein, who's in Lebanon, Biden's mediator, supposedly, for the. And what's interesting is that he's, of course, an Israeli citizen too. So he's an Israeli American, and that
we can't make this
for us,
up.
You can't make it up. I mean, it's literally it's almost impossible to understand where American policy starts and where Israeli policy ends, and it just seems to be literally embodied in Amos Hochstein. And when he comes in, he's sort of
and Douglas Feith and Paul Wolfowitz and many others along the way.
That's right. So let's hope that what we're ending with in a sense.
But I think that the point I would make is I'd make a general point about American politics that I think is worth making. This strange fact that Israel captured American foreign policy is not unique in the American political milieu. American power is for the buying, basically. And not only on the question of the Middle East, but on the question of the health sector, on the question of the military industrial complex more generally, on the question of big ag, on the question of finance. And the American system is a very interesting system. It's an extraordinarily plutocratic and corrupted system where money buys you ownership. Our government basically is now owned and operated, and it'll be interesting to see. It's owned and operated by Silicon Valley this time around. This is the big purchaser. They basically have the big prize. Okay, it's a dynamic sector of the U.S. It's quite interesting. On the other hand, it's increasingly in line with the military also. So I have a lot of worries about it, that maybe we're seeing Orwell completely come to life this way in the version of Palantir and others. But you buy American policy. And by the way, at a pretty low cost. It's not like AIPAC, for example, spends all that much money. $100 million is pathetic. These people are so cheap, so unbelievably cheap. For now, it's probably $500 million that you need. You buy tens of billions of dollars of armaments. You buy whole wars out of this for nothing. I mean, you can't get leverage like this almost in any other business venture in the whole world. So at least and the American people are really sick of it, by the way. They know, do you trust your government? Hell no. Do you trust the Congress? Well, 10% say yes, but that's because 10% will say yes to anything you ask. But nobody basically trusts the Congress at all. Do you think politicians act in the American interest? No. Then you go to specifics. Do you support American foreign policy in the Middle East? No. And so on. What's the lesson? Well, one lesson could be, if you're an investor, buy into it. If you're a forecaster, understand it. If you're, an academic who wants to dream that something could get better, at least point out, this is really screwed up. This is not making America great. This is not even allowing America to be sovereign. This is not in our interests. It's not in our security. It's making the world a lot more dangerous. Attack Iran? Yeah, brilliant idea. Next step to world war. Especially Iran and Russia will sign a security agreement on January 17th. All right, great stuff, Bibi. Tell us your next genius move. You've already created so much destruction all through your region. So all I'm saying is we should understand arguments about what's right and wrong, legal, not legal, in American interest, not in American interest, may or may not be relevant at all. But at least for me, it's just about the only thing I have is to try to say, this makes no sense. We need to do something different.
Professor Sachs, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We really, really appreciate all your insight and look forward to listening to all your other podcasts. We know that you do this regularly, so we look forward to following up on you on this.
Well, great to be with you. Thanks so much. Thanks for such an interesting